Hello, we're ready for another live with CCO. We're at number 96. Just a quick reminder, if you guys aren't familiar with our live with CCOs, this is a casual get together. This will stay up on our YouTube channel, and feel free to share with your peers and friends, colleagues. Let them know about our live with CCO where we provide that free education. Today, we have an excellent topic. We're going to be talking about telehealth because the National Telehealth Policy Resource Center that is with, and I'm looking over here at this other screen to make sure I get the title right, Center for Connected Health Policy dropped the July 2023 billing for telehealth encounters, an introductory on guide on fee for service. Telehealth is changing all the time. And so this just came out, and some of my peers let me know about it. I read through it, and we're going to talk about that tonight. Feel free to ask questions. We like our CCO lives to be really interactive. I went ahead and thought we would just title this Telehealth Billing Knowledge. It is a little bit of a review, but I'm going to give you an update on what has changed since the PhD ended and what those kind of extended dates are. But the number one thing that you need to be aware of is that this information could change on a dime. They are all the time dropping new policies and adjusting and tweaking. So I would encourage you to find a resource that you like. And this is an excellent resource that I'm going to show you. Connect with them. They get a grant on uh, studying this telehealth. So we'll make sure you guys have links for that. Hi, everybody. Jamie, Evelyn, Ronnie, and Sarah. Ooh, I don't know. That may be Rohini. Sorry if I said your name wrong. Great to see you guys here tonight. So telehealth is really a hot topic. And I think the reason is because of the major changes after COVID, but also because of what I just mentioned before. Things change so often that it's confusing. And if you're not dealing with telehealth as an everyday thing, then you might miss out on something really, really pertinent to know. Before we jump into any more, I want you to know that again, this is our CCO live where we are more casual and interact, and I pay much more close attention to your comments and shout outs and stuff. But we also have presentations that we leave up exclusively in our CCO club. The great thing about those is that not only do you get the information from the live presentation, like what we're doing right now, but we have the presentation transcribed, and the CCO club members not only get that transcription, but they also get the slide deck with those resources. Now, we may tease a little bit and give you some insight of what we're doing in the CCO live or within the CCO club, excuse me. But we don't leave that up. That's exclusive to our club members. If this is something that you think you'd be interested in being a part of, it's really easy. Just go to cco.us/club. A great way not only to carry on conversations about what's happening in the medical field right now, but also that content that's pertinent to probably your daily work life. So, just a little shout out about our CCO club. All right. Thanks, guys, for joining us. I'm seeing more names, and there's a several names there. Hi, Karen. Oh, we've got people coming in from Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Those are the three major areas that we post the content out to everybody, but we also are on Twitter and we are also on TikTok. So I look forward to that. I noticed somebody wanted just a moment ago, I saw pop up regarding the point of services and some of the modifiers, and I definitely have that. Um, noted here. So we'll talk about that in a moment. I'm going to kind of shift from the slides that I created to the document that was created. First, let's talk about what made telehealth, an everyday word. We knew it was there in the past, but when COVID-19 happened and the pandemic, that changed everything for telehealth. It was available. It was very seldom used for the most part. Uh, because one, I think it felt clunky, and why change the status quo, what we are used to, how we were used to practicing medicine and providing services for our patients. Now, in the real rural areas, I know that in Texas, in the prison systems, they were using telehealth a long time ago because I had gone to a lecture in the early 2000s, and they were talking about they were kind of a beta test system for telehealth and what could be done. It was pretty exciting. The cusp of new ways to practice medicine when you need to be remote. And that's about the first time I really started to kind of take an interest in telehealth. But we all know that with the pandemic, that turned everything on its ear. We changed the way we did a lot of things in our life, and medicine itself uh, had to catch up fast. I mean, people's lives depended on it. So a few things that we needed to just remind you about, just as a refresher, is that the PHE, or the public health emergency, it ended May 11th, 2023. Now, if you go back, we did do a lecture back then in May to talk about what was staying and what was ending with telehealth and payers. Just a little bit of a highlight. Again, you can go back and look at that, but things have changed since then, since just May. Now, there were and are the pandemic era waivers that remain in place till the end of this of 2023. You're going to see those staying in place, but others will end in the end of 2023, and some have already expired. And we talked about those in the previous presentation that we did on telehealth. A statement that was made by CMS said many of the major temporary policies will at least remain through the end of 2024 due to the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2023, advancing telehealth beyond COVID 19. Um, and administrative actions taken by the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, or CMS. We knew that that was going to happen, and we did talk about those, but even the information that I tell you tonight that dropped for this great uh, billing guide that came out, and I think you need to add them as one of your resources. Things are going to change again very soon. I just know it will, as they tweak and highlight, just like we do with our code set guidelines. That verbiage needs to be clarified, and we'll see how they did that tonight. It's going to happen as people need to understand. Now, some of this information may be um, elementary to you guys. Some of it is maybe a little rudimentary. Let's get into some great descriptive words, I guess. But I need to give you a brief look at some terminology that, if you're newer to telehealth, that is going to be important for you to understand. The first thing that I wanted to bring up was originating site. Ultimately, what that means is, where's the patient at when the encounter happens, the telehealth encounter happens? Are they in their home? Are they in a skilled facility? Are they in a prison? There is an originating site, and that term just means, where's the patient at? Um, until the end of 24, telehealth can occur in the patient's home. See, in the past, you couldn't do that. Now, One thing also is to note that the originating site may bill Medicare an originating site fee code using code Q3014. So you might want to jot that down, look into that. If the originating site is at the home, no fee can be billed. Now, let's say that the patient's in a prison or they're in a facility. Again, look into Q3014. Important for you to be aware of that. Next, we'll be talking about eligible providers. Now, in the past, not all eligible providers were on the specific list that were accepted for Medicare, but the PHE gave us the ability that all providers, if you were a accepted Medicare provider, then you're on the list. And I went ahead and just gave you kind of a breakdown of who these providers are. This is expected to last till the end of 2024. That could change. We may go back to that Medicare list, getting rid of some of these providers. Now, if I think of it as it's kind of like saying, I'm going to give you some candy, and you give somebody some candy, but then all of a sudden you taking some of it back. You can't really do that, right? So can they are they gonna do it? The possibility's there, but they went ahead and said they're gonna extend this out to the end of 2024, December 31st. I suspect, I could be wrong, but it's really hard that this is working so well to say, "Okay, now you're not gonna get reimbursed for this anymore." Um, Telehealth has been a big game changer on helping, patients and, uh I just don't see them completely taking that away with these providers. Mm, could be wrong. Now, another term that you should be familiar with is distant site. So where the provider is located, not so now we first have the originating site. Where's the patient at? Be in their home, but they could be someplace else. Are you an eligible provider giving the service? Yes, NPs, medical social workers, OTPT, all those, they're all in that list now. And then you need to understand the term distant site. Where is the provider located at? And that really truly determines what Medicare or how much Medicare is going to reimburse you. Now, when we have a waiver concerning home addresses, that could end in the end of 2023. Uh, but the important thing to understand in this green box, it says be sure to work with your credentialing staff or inform your providers on how to suppress their addresses so that they do not appear on the CMS 1500 form, and the group practice address would appear instead. So it's very, very important that that is something that you look into. If you have a provider that is going to be doing the visits electronically and they're going to be doing them from home, their address will show up on the 1500 form unless you guys tweak that. And that Medicare information is free to the public. So that is a major concern and something that may be part of your role in connecting or correcting. I do know that one of the providers that I worked with in Dallas, and during COVID, he had had heart surgery, and they absolutely did not want him seeing patients. And so he worked from home and was able to continue with his practice through telehealth, and then the other members of his team were able to practice out of the office, even when things started clearing up a little bit, because it wasn't really safe for him to be exposing himself to the patients. So that address, instead of having his home address on there, you want to make sure that um, the place of business address is there. Just a little tidbit tip. Okay, place of service. Mm. I'm going to get ready to switch over to the document. I still have some slides that I'm going to jump back and forth to, but some of this information in the slides is intense and wordy, and I don't like putting that many words on a slide. We want them to just be highlights. So I'm going to bring over this document and real quick give you an idea of what it looks like. You'll still be able to access the document because it's a CCO Alive. But again, this is the July 2023, and we are giving you the link if you look in the chat on how to find them. Excuse me. Center for Connected Health Policy, the National Telehealth Policy Resource Center. Mm-mm-mm. So what they named this particular document, Billing for Telehealth Encounters and Introductory Guide for Fee for Service. So I took the highlights that I thought were pertinent out of here for you, but you can go back and look at this document, which has excellent coding tips and billing tips in it, and they make it very easy to follow. Notice here, this one, when billing, you will use either the CMS 1500 form for individual practitioners or UBO form for facilities. We already know that. That's basic information, and it has more content on terms like originating site, so on and so forth. Now, they also give Medicaid examples for California throughout the document, but again, I don't if that's pertinent to you or not, I don't know. Excuse me. Okay, here's where we were getting to. The billing tip for point of services and hospital outpatient physician departments and stuff, point of services of 19 or 22 and using modifier 95. If I keep coughing, I might have to put a piece of candy in my mouth. Okay, and here's where we get the list of eligible providers. And another reason why it's important for you to have this document is you are able to use their links. Excuse me. All right, let's move on and talk about the codes. Now, they go into the basics about the code set. We don't really need that. I think that for the most part, our knowledge base is above that. But what is pertinent is to talk about specific codes like this one, and I put this in the slide deck, for partial hospitalization and intensive outpatient programs, services to take place in the patient's home via telehealth. The following occurred, and then it talks about the year in 2023. The final rule that dropped, and then the policy discussion where it's located, and I put that in here. These are the codes that I thought were very important for you to look at. Let me just bring them up again. This place of service is not what you can reference that. Let me jump here, right here, because this is for mental health. Now we're going to go back. Patients receiving the PHP service from CMHCs or hospital-based PHPs, the codes that you should be aware of, and I didn't want you to have to look at all that intense verbiage that's repetition. So C7900, service for the diagnosis, evaluation, or treatment of mental health or substance use disorder, and it's 15 to 29 minutes. this is repetitious for each one, then C7901 is 30 to 60 minutes, and C7902 is each additional 15 minutes. Again, that is really important for you guys to look at. Uh, I'll bring that document over again, but Medicare fee for service. If you aren't familiar with these acronyms, RHCs operate exclusively for the purpose of providing primary care services for Medicare patients located in rural and shortage areas, whereas FQHCs provide primary care services and dental care services in rural and urban areas and shortage areas. I thought that was important for you to understand. And also that if uh, that if you're an eligible provider, then you've been added to the list. But if they take that away, then the FQHCs and the RHCs, they're going to receive a flat rate for the year of 2023, and it's going to be about $100, $99. So this may be something that you want to plan ahead for and be aware of. Also in the document, they talked about teaching hospitals because that was something that the PHE impacted. And a question had come through and they clarified it. CMS clarified it. So the question that came through after they talked about the end of the PHE was, will teaching physicians be allowed to use virtual presence and bill for services involving residents in residency training sites outside of an MSA after the PHE ends? Okay, what they had stated was extremely confusing, obviously, because they got a, a lot of pushback from that. And this was their answer. It says CMS is exercising enforcement discretion to allow teaching physicians in all teaching settings to be present virtually through audio, video, real-time communication technology. Now that means you have to have audio. It's not audio or video, it's audio video technology for purposes of billing under the PFS for services they furnish involving resident physicians. Now, we are exercising this informed discretion through the end of 2023 as we anticipate considering our policy for services involving teaching physicians and residents further through our rule making process. That 10, just disregard that. That was the footnote that came in there. So I wanted to highlight that. I don't know if that's applicable for any of you guys, if you work at teaching hospitals or work with residents. So they allowed them to do it, and then they said, "Hey, we're gonna pull that back," and they said, "Oh, no, wait, you're gonna be able to do it, but it's got to be through audio, video, and it's gotta be real-time communication, and we're gonna allow that to go into 23, but then there's probably gonna be a change, but we'll put it in official ruling by the end of 23." All right, and then, um just as a perspective for the code set, because they mentioned it at the article, I didn't really think to mention it, but since they did mention it in that, I thought it would be a good idea to highlight this, is that for telehealth, we originally had 103 CPT codes regarding telehealth, but that was back at the start of 2020 before, just right at the pandemic. And um, with the need for telehealth, and again, those were not used very much. I don't think that they were used to the capacity that they could have been, just because most people didn't really understand how it worked and how well it would work for them. But after that, we went to 266, and that's a huge change. That more than doubled the telehealth codes because they we needed them for clarification to be able to translate properly. So on the current telehealth available codes, we uh, also need to note that the list of what can also be provided via audio only and what services at this time are available, only available through the end of 2024. So in the past, you could do um, visual telehealth visits. They would risk adjust even, but audio only would not. And then it got to be a problem because then when you didn't have a choice, what happens when a person doesn't have the ability to, they don't have a cell phone. They can't put a camera up, or see the provider. What do you do for these people? And you can't not do the visits. You don't want to do the visits and not get reimbursed. So they had to tweak that a little bit. So we're going to see some changes in that. I don't foresee audio only staying in there. Um, Again, maybe they'll end up with something that where you can have telehealth visits at a specific location. I don't know what the answer is to that. Now, we're going to move to the modifiers. I went ahead and pulled the modifiers out and broke them down, but let me just look at the document real quick. I'll show you what they did. And they put the modifiers like this, which is a pretty easy to follow actually, and put some additional content. But I broke it down uh, to me in a way that was a little easier to digest. And let's look at them quickly because modifiers always confuse my students, and I think it's easier when we talk about them and almost use them as flashcard scenarios. The first one, these are telehealth modifiers. G0 is used to identify that this is a telehealth service that's provided. And then GQ, it's not used unless the patient is in Alaska or Hawaii, and it's just asynchronous telehealth service. GT is critical access hospital. Distant site providers billing for CAH are optional method two, and that's kind of self-explanatory. GY is notice of liability not issued, and then FR, supervising practitioner present through two-way audio and video communication. FQ, a telehealth service was furnished using real-time audio only communication technology. Again, that's important that we translate that. 93, synchronous telemedicine service rendered via telephone or other real-time interactive audio only telecommunication system. And 95, synchronous telemedicine services rendered via real-time interactive audio video telecommunication system. But that is going to go until the end of 2023, and it's required on the CMS 1500 form if you do a telehealth service. So the biggies here are going to be the 95, the 93, and I think the FQ and the FR. The rest of them, okay. Uh, just so you know, FQ and 93, there was a little bit of confusion. So again, they decided to clarify with that. What is the difference? Because they said, well, 93 and FQ, isn't that the same thing? And they said, well, 93 is going to be used for mental health claims. Additionally, effective on and after January 1st, 2023, CPT modifier 93 can be appended to claim lines as appropriate for services furnished using audio only communication technology. Now, all providers, including RHCs and FQHCs and OTPs, must append Medicare modifier FQ when necessary, and that's Medicare telehealth services was furnished using audio only communication technology for allowable audio only services and stuff. So they do go on to state that, however, consistent with our proposal for audio only services furnished under the PFS, we are also finalizing to require all providers including those that were mentioned above, to use modifier 93 when billing for eligible mental health services furnished via audio-only communication technology. And providers have the option to use FQ or 93 modifiers or both whenever it's appropriate. So hopefully that clears up a little of the confusion about what the difference in FQ and 93 are. I know that we had questions about them before. There was also mention of our social workers. And in 21, CMS, they went ahead and granted the ability to use 98970 through 98972 for reimbursement for those social workers. Now, these are medical social workers. These would be master's degrees. Clinical psychologists, you got PTs, OTs, and SLP services. It will consider other proposed practitioners throughout the year. Now, uh, I went ahead and put in bold during the PHE when we were in the middle of that, because that's gone away. Licensed clinical social workers, clinical psychologists, and the other specialties were granted use of non-physician billing practitioner e-visit codes. So they were kind of allowed in to that list. Uh, but is that going to stay? Well, right now it is. So when billed by private practice, the PTs, OTs, and SLPs, they can code those to include the GO, GP, and GN therapy modifiers to signify that the CTPS are furnished as therapy services by these particular providers. So important that you make note of that. Now, the last one that I put in the slide deck was regarding hospice. Telehealth is going to be able to be used to conduct recertification of eligibility for hospice care all the way through 24. Laura says, so docs who are not mental health providers should use FQ for audio only visit. Yes, Laura, that's the way I understand it. That is correct. And let me just move this over now, just as a brief, because that was the main part of the breakdown of the slides, the stuff that I thought was pertinent that might be relative, uh, make it a little more easier for you to abstract what you needed out of this document. However, I really encourage you to get on their mailing list, be a part of this organization's connections, because they have linked all kinds of fabulous information, and they have gone above and beyond in making it easy and accessible. There are other things in here that I thought, well, okay, they're interesting, but they just didn't seem like things that were major changes or something that I felt like you would use all the time. Now, I know place of service was mentioned, so let's look at that. For the place of service codes, let's see, the telehealth services are going to go through, everything's going to stay the same through 23. However, uh, be mindful of modifier 93 and 95. And then it went on to say, look, right here, payment parity will be maintained for, I'm trying to get my bifocals in here just right, for non-facility places of service through 23, but beyond that is a question mark, and CMS may make changes to the PFS for 2024. Several times they go in and tell you, you have to check this often. Every month, in fact, I would be checking the information on what they're doing with telehealth and being reimbursed at least once a week, minimum once a week, if this is something that you are providing. Now, they did go on to talk about examples of these different places of service, and it was mentioned earlier for 11 locations other than a hospital, a SNF, military treatment facility, common, blah, blah, blah. You can see all that, where the health professional routinely provides health examinations, diagnoses, and treatments of illness, injuries, and ambulatory bases, and then 19 is a portion of off campus, and 22 is a portion of hospital's main campus. There is synchronous service POS codes. We talked about that, I think, briefly. And then one of the other things that I thought that was brilliant that they did is at the very end, they gave a lot of examples. Now, I didn't choose to pull those in because, again, I was going to give you the ability to look at this information. And oh, this is one that I didn't pull in that I almost did. What if the patient owns their own device when you're doing the monitoring? Mm, that's really, really important. So Bill 99457 and 99458 only, as there will be no practice expenses incurred. I almost added that, so I'm glad that caught my eye before I wrapped this up. They go in to talk more about the codes, but I want to get down to the examples that's at the end. So I'm trying not to make you dizzy by scrolling so much. A lot of stuff on behavioral health. Oh, and then they also kind of take you through how to fill out the forms, what information's needed. Again, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. This is a wonderful document for you guys to have in your possession, because I know that seldom do they put those in there, but it literally takes you through the steps on how to fill out and where to put in the 1500 form. Don't forget that name of, don't be putting the provider's home address, and the different codes and how to put that in there with these patient scenarios, unique scenarios that will be hopefully pertinent to what you're doing in your daily life. Now, of coding. Center for Connected Health Policy. This is how you can get a hold of them. And really interesting to know that they work off grants. So our taxpayer money is working. Really thought that was awesome. All right, let's kind of wrap up here, guys. I know I've given you a lot of content to digest. I'd really appreciate it if you would let us know if this was helpful for you. Also, if there's something specific, like it doesn't have to be regarding telehealth, but in our industry that you would like for us to kind of unpack for you, we would love you to send it in as a topic request. Our goal is to be able to provide the education that you desire. So it's really easy to let us know what it is you want more information on. Go to cco.us/topic request, and we will absolutely put it in our list of information that people are looking for, and we'll give you a shout out if we use your topic. Again, we are on several social media platforms, and I look forward to seeing your feedback as well as hearing what you would like to know more about. We don't really advertise. We go by word of mouth. So by your liking when the information and content that we give you and sharing it with your colleagues and peers and friends, then we get recognition for the hard work that we put in and the team does. Don't forget, we absolutely love what we do. We're pretty passionate about education, and we want to also make sure that the content that we're providing is going to be useful to you. So don't forget to fill out that topic request if it is you think of something that you'd like to know more about. In the meantime, jump over to cco.us, see what we've got going on, and you'll be excited to see things like the new advanced coding course that we just dropped. It was a lot of fun to put together. And if you want some good practice in every body system, that's where you need to go. So don't forget, it's fun to learn with us and share the good news about CCO. It'll help us a lot. Bye, guys.